Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to this dialogue. With its determination to ensure lasting peace and security in the country, Ethiopia has recently launched its landmark demobilization processes. How successful has it been so far? And how is the international community reacting to it? This is going to be our topic of discussion. And my guest today is Bayisa Wakwoya. He is a senior researcher and consultant of conflict management, resolution, and mediation. He will break it down for us so that we'll have a better understanding of the realities on the ground by putting things into perspective. I'm your host, Shifarao Lakao. Do stay with us. Well, many thanks for making the time to talk to us.
I appreciate the invitation.
So, to kickstart our discussion, let's first off talk about Ethiopia's long-standing indigenous ways of solving issues through discussions and negotiations. So what are some of your overall views when it comes to Ethiopia's indigenous conflict resolution mechanisms that this East African nation has been practicing for a very, very long period of time?
Yes, indeed. Every conflict has its own specific characteristics, and although there are prevailing universal guidelines of conflict resolution mechanisms, each country has to design its own mechanisms which emanates from its past history and practices. And I think what I'm observing recently, especially with the part of Oromo Liberation Army giving up arms and joining the civilian movement, it shows that every nation, especially in this situation like Ethiopia, can design their own mechanism of conflict resolution, which is factual now, which may not work elsewhere, even in our neighboring countries, in Somalia or in Kenya or Sudan. But for this particular purpose, it seemed to work. And although it's yet to be seen how it ends and how the ultimate durable solution is found, but the way it is now is actually the very fact that about 8,000 former combatants laid down their arms and joined the civilian movement is a leap forward. So nation, this is a big proof that where we as experts say that a nation can design its own mechanism, which Ethiopia did, as far as I'm told. And it seemed to work. And as I said, it doesn't mean 100% there will be a positive result, but that's the second step. But the mechanism of solving conflicts in its own way, then why I said its own way is traditionally use third parties, observers, and negotiators, mediators, and then guarantors. In this situation, actually, it's a homemade. I was told that they use the Bagadas and some Oromo intellectuals, experts, I'm told, and it worked. And the fact is that 8,000 of them are now, they laid down their arms and are in the camps somewhere in Ethiopia. So it's a step ahead.
That's interesting. So moving on from there, as you know, Ethiopia has recently launched its landmark phase of disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration DDR phase or process. How successful has it been so far, especially in fostering lasting peace in different parts of the country?
As I said, there are guiding principles, at least for the last quarter century. What I knew, what I work with is you are guided by the guiding principle, which means there are steps which you have to follow regardless of the nature of the conflict or the history of the given country. What it means is laying down arms by itself is not the end of the conflict, but there is a process which you have to follow. That I mean, the first one being right after laying down the arms, the former combatants should be kept in a very neutral location. The reason being for them to learn to live without guns. to adjust themselves to life without guns, which is not easy. So if you are in the bush for 5, 6 years, having guns close to you, the closest thing in your life is your guns, closer than anybody, closer than police, the government, or your wife, anybody. So to detach yourself from this closest friend is one of the most difficult things. And I've seen in these different countries where I was involved in one situation in former Yugoslavia where it took us 2 years actually to disarm 1,000 young boys. Because weapons gives you everything. Gun is a source of energy, power, and it gives you food. Yeah. It gives you power, anything.
Security as well.
Physical safety and security. So during this transition of 5, 6, 8 months or in a year, you have to train them to learn to live without it. People underestimate it, but it's a very serious procedure. Without it, you cannot design the future of the fighters because you have to pass through this humanization process. Because when you are in the bush, you are fighting against everybody. You fight against the government force, you fight within, you fight against animals, you fight against hunger. So in order to come through this process and be normal, is you have to be in a neutral place where your former adversaries have no access to. That means you have to keep detached from especially government forces, especially with uniforms, because they were killing each other yesterday, and they shouldn't see each other now before you complete that process. It's a healing process. It's a process where you realize that life without gun is possible. In order to reach that, you have to clean your mind with the help of experts. That means you don't see guns, you don't see former fighters from the government side. Civilians will bring you to pass through that path. You play football the whole day, you watch TV, you watch movie, and then you become ordinary human being who can live without guns. That you cannot exclude. You don't skip that. And that's the problem what I have seen within the government. So they put in the camp, and the government officials are training them. By itself, it's not bad, but at this stage, it gives a feeling of insecurity to be taken care of by the government at this stage. They have to learn, they have to pass certain process, and that's what I'm advising the governments to do. They have to be their own first. Now, instead of somebody coming and training them and telling them to do this, let them come up with themselves and to realize it, to look at it from different angle. But they have to pass through this process, and it's possible. It's not excluded that this way cannot be done, but it's better for them to pass through this humanization process where you have to keep them in a neutral camp and teach them, let them learn to live without guns.
So how are the different regions in the country taking the DDR process as an important step toward ensuring lasting peace in different parts of the country?
Yeah, normally, human being by definition, you don't just take gun to the bush to kill somebody. They must have reasons. Whether it is legitimate or illegitimate or it deserves or that, it's another issue. But every single person, when he takes up the gun and go to the bush, and it's a premeditated killing by definition, legally. So you go there in your mind to kill somebody who is on your way, who doesn't agree with you, who doesn't keep the promise. For whatever reason, you have a reason to kill. Yeah. So when you, in different countries, it ends when the question you were raising while you were in the bush is promised or get fulfilled by the government, like election, democratic process, power sharing, different things. So what you were requested, and then when you get it, you conclude an agreement, and at the end of it, still the process of humanization is still as kept as it is, but in principle, the end of a conflict ends with agreement. So both sides, you give and take. Yeah. And at the end of it, normally, what makes this situation different is actually, I haven't seen the last 25 years actually, where conflicts, although it's only 8,000 of the fighters, It's a big number. That means 8,000 guns are silenced. It ended without any, I don't know, written agreement or verbal, whatever it is. And I didn't even know what was their first question, why they went to the bush, and what did they get? Is it fulfilled, or they gave up their arms for other reason, with compelling reason, which is, let's say, I don't want people to die because of me, so I sacrifice my initial goal and then be there and wait for some time. Then I will come back to the bush, but for now, let the people save. You can't say that. I'm just giving you theoretically. Whatever it is, in the situation of Ethiopia actually is unprecedented, as far as I know. It's good. There is no bad thing, but my fear is actually, as I said initially, if the government really doesn't give special care for this process, and if these people, 8,000 people, doesn't get what they would have expected or what they have been promised, or otherwise the guns are always there, and they go back. So the government has to be very, very, very careful. Now the burden is on the government. It's the government who should take the lead actually in ensuring that these people do not look back, to go back. And you have to keep them here, you have to attract them. You have to give them what makes them stay there. You have to anchor them in the society here. It's a complex program. So the government has to take care of this. It's not enough that they put the gun there. Guns are always there. They can go back and get it whenever they want, because they got it from there. They didn't go to the bush with guns. So if they are disappointed with anything, and anything can disappoint them, by the way, so they have to be taken care like child. You have to give them their needs. You know, I didn't mean that you just go out of your way to please them, but actually within the scope of what citizens get now, treat them equally with other citizens. And don't mistreat them, don't push them to go back, because in their mind they are still thinking of life there. And especially when part of them are still in the bush. So the government has to ensure that those who come here really do not go back. Otherwise, if you fail, nothing will ever trust you. And there are reasons for trusting you, because there is what we call it Gila. So there are some things, precedents before. When people trusted the government, they came, it didn't work out, they go back, and they become vicious after that. It won't be easy. So the government has to be careful about this, to keep them here. That means you meet their basic needs.
And what lessons should Ethiopia draw from other countries, especially that have gone through similar processes in its efforts of ensuring lasting peace and stability in different parts of the country?
Yeah, I think in this situation, actually, Ethiopia is ahead of things. I think there is not much to learn from others when it comes to it's a homegrown mechanism of conflict resolution. I don't know the details. I was told that there are agreements which are in the custody of the Abagadas now. It contains about 13 articles. I haven't seen it. Whatever it is without third parties' involvement. And I personally appreciate that, because I know what the third parties are. I'm a foreign national. I'm an expert of foreign countries, institutions. In Ethiopia's situation, I think any third party you consider to participate, they are there
with their own interests,
not to help you. Actually, their interest is also very minimal. Ethiopia is not a trade partner to anyone. We don't have any leverage in the international community, nothing.
Yes.
So when we are recipients of humanitarian assistance, that's it. We don't have impact. The only thing where the international community, we want them to participate, or they want to participate, is they don't want Ethiopia to fail, because fail means 120 million Ethiopians are going to run all over Africa. So the destabilization of the region, security issue, safety of their personnel, and they don't want that to happen. So they want Ethiopia to continue, and for that they give you a little bit more than lip service. So I think the way Ethiopians now decide that they own themselves, they disregard existing practice of different countries and engage themselves like this. After all, it makes sense. This is Oromo versus Oromo. It's not like the Ethiopian government versus Oromo as it is. It is clearly people of the same group, so they can talk, And that itself is an exemplary way of doing it, actually. Whereas the other principles which I mentioned earlier about humanization process of keeping them in the camp, we have to learn from others because we never did it. That's never been Ethiopian history. So I think that part, the experts, we should fill in to try to advise them what to do. On that element, still, we have to learn from abroad.
That's interesting, indeed. So, as you know, different international communities have hailed the DDR processes as the right step toward lasting peace and security. So how should they view this as a critical step toward reconciliation and forgiveness in different parts of the country?
To be honest, except the little spoilers around for different national reasons, we know these spoilers of Ethiopian peace. The international community at large, by large, they are for peace, like every Ethiopian, by the way, because peace is a very expensive commodity. So the international community wants Ethiopia to be in peace, of course, excluding the spoilers, our neighbors mainly. Right. So they really see, call it DDR or even these traditional mechanisms, whatever it is, they want Ethiopia to be at peace. None of them really want it to happen. They may not help you to reach peace, but they want Ethiopia to be at peace. And for this, they don't want to contribute money, of course, beyond the humanitarian assistance, but ideally they want Ethiopia to have where the OLA or FANO or TPLF, they want all this to stop and so that the country be at peace, and as far as I know.
Different opposing factions are now focusing on peaceful struggle over armed struggle, and as a result, they are now laying down their arms and answering the peace call of the government. What specifically does this shift imply? And what is the message that this will convey to other armed conflicts in different parts of the country?
As I said, it's very unique in principle for those who want to learn about DDR. I think this is a subject for study, how it happened. Personally, I really cherish it. I wish every nation has its own, they have their own mechanism of conflict resolution, but because one of the parties, for different past history, past experiences, they want the third party to participate as, not as only as observer, but as a mediator, as a negotiator, or as a curator or guarantor. So the message it sends that is, one, agreement is possible without third parties' involvement. And second, trust is still the fundamental element for conflict resolution. They have to trust each other. And of course, the third parties, that is, but this trust, they believe that is going to be implemented, all the promises on the project designs or whatever is implemented positively. And it should send a message to others again. It's too early to judge, too early to conclude, but whatever happens to these 8,000 people has either negative or positive impact on those who didn't join the peace process yet. That's why I repeatedly say it's actually a test case, and the government has to make maximum effort to make sure that this project is successful. Short of that, then wrong message. Not only that the people in the bush don't join you, but the people who joined you already may go back to the bush. So the government has to be careful about this.
So what is your message to all relevant actors and concerned stakeholders as part of the move of contributing to the peace and prosperity of this East African nation?
I think because DDR is new to it, we never did it. The tradition is you win, you decide what to do with the loser. The bottom line, one thing for sure is that the loser will never become equal to you. You have to destroy them, either physically or mentally. You have to make sure that they don't challenge you again. In most cases, you kill them. In many, at least the last 200 years of Ethiopian history, You win, you cut his arm so that he will never carry gun again. You did many things. So this is new. And if the Ethiopian authorities mishandle it, I don't blame them, because it has never been practiced. In theory, those who lay down their arms and join you, which has never happened before, some people may interpret it as losing the fight but it's not the case. They repeatedly said they come and join the peace process not because they lost or not because the government is stronger than them, but said they come for the sake of ensuring safety and security of the civilian Oromo people. If that is the case, because it's unprecedented, the government should design new way of dealing with them, which has never been before. That's where I plead to the government and the institutions which are dealing with them now to use available experiences and experts from other countries and so on, seek advice, have meetings, and try to say, what should we do now? How can we ensure so that these people don't go back to the bush again? I think it's not a decree. It cannot be done by decree or decision of one ministry. This has to include the community, actually. How can we solve this? It's a communal problem. It's a societal problem. It's not one-to-one problem. So I think the government should reach out to others. There are many, not many, maybe there are quite a number of experts in dealing with conflicts, and seek their advice and work with them. For now, just because they are under your control or you put them in the camp and so on, deep down there, they are not still there with you. I know it. Because they are here because they sacrificed many things. It's not easy to lay down as a man, especially in this patriarchal society like Ethiopia, to lay down your arm and come without arm, disarmed, and then be in camp where somebody else is supervising your day-to-day life. It's a big undertaking. It's a big sacrifice. So the government has to ensure that this sacrifice is translated into what is the thing. So I think it's a big sacrifice as a human being in general, and especially as an Ethiopian male who grew up in this society. So I think we all know it, and the government should really, really think about it and use the experience and expertise of other places and make sure that they are happy with what they did, happy with their decision.
Wow, that's a great insight and a wonderful piece of advice. Many thanks for giving us some of your precious time and these great ideas. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. And I hope the listeners see the added value of actually government paying special attention to the cause of this group of people who laid down their arms. It's good for the whole nation, and I'm happy that it happened. And thank you for inviting me, for me to share with you my experiences. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, many thanks to you as well for having been with us so far. Until I see you next time with yet another program, it's a goodbye from me, Shifaralak. Take care and stay safe.